Hello, everybody. Okay, I guess that's a little low. I decided that, since I'm not filming a movie here or anything, it's okay if you see the boom mic and whatnot. Because I was reminded that I am someone who mutters, and when I move away from the mic, it gets worse. So I'm trying to get it to be in a good position. Hey, Quindy. Hey, Pendrake TG. Daka Flocka Flame. I don't know who else is out here. Yeah, oh, Bob and Julie. Although probably just Julie, because Bob is one of the people who finds my muttering troublesome, which I totally understand. Valender the Red. Early bird with the brush. No, aren't I on time? I thought I was on time. Just barely even. So I don't know if any of you were at the end of Kickstarter party and I got to talk to you in person. If so, I really enjoyed that. I really, because of everything that's been happening the past few years, I haven't traveled much. I haven't got to hang out with fellow miniature enthusiasts. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And it reminds me, I don't know, it's like my friends and family are very supportive, which I know isn't true for everybody, but they don't really want to hear all the minutia of miniature stuff that I would be happy to talk about with other people. Pendrake did not go to the post Kickstarter party, which, I mean, given where it is and that it was just one evening or one afternoon, was certainly not accessible to a lot of people. Hello, Kiriniko, who I'm sure also did not go to the end of Kickstarter party. But were any of you watching all the Twitch stuff? Because I actually haven't gotten a chance to catch up on the Twitch stuff, so you may know more things than I did. But it feels like so long since I've done this. And I was really wrestling with what to do because I actually still have a few deadline projects for Ron. Deadlines haven't stopped just because the Kickstarter stopped. So I didn't have time to really do something that required a lot of prep or thinking or whatever. Quindy LaRue was shockingly on the stream. And we were actually talking about you last week, Quindy, and all in a completely positive way because we appreciate what you do so much. We really do. Green users enjoyed seeing me and everyone else. And Pendrake watched a little. Kiriniko watched online. It was great. So I'm going to switch over to my other view. Actually, just for a minute, I'm going to switch away from the face camera because I realize my door is open and you're going to hear some of a very boring meeting if I don't change that. Because my husband is in the next room over. So I do not know what is up with this camera. When I always try to start everything up a little bit before. And so if there's any technical problems, and I thought this camera and I had worked out our problems, and that gray paper that I've been using, it was refusing to focus on that. So I have no idea what's going on in this tiny camera bang. So this is another kind of sketch paper. It's actually ivory, not pure white. So if it doesn't look pure white on your screen, it is not. But hopefully it will do the job. So for a little bit of catch up first, when I got down to Reaper, Joseph Wolf, who if you were watching the streams you probably saw, was working on the Dungeon Dwellers RPG. Huh. I think that's as bright as it goes. So I had this almost finished. You may, if you were watching previous streams, I think I did 2 streams where I worked on this, where I was trying to do better source light than I did on the official miniature of this figure, which I no longer have because I gave that to Reaper while I was down there. So I can't do a comparison. I have some photo comparisons, but when I was taking the pictures, I was realizing that OSL is one of those things, like when I do this, you get that sense of light so much better than if you look at this photograph and then you slide over and you look at this photograph, it just doesn't capture it as well. So, I thought I would show her off even though I can't do the comparison. And this was, I ended up doing the finish. I mean, really all of it was more of a tabletop standard than, super fancy. So there's a little dot where a wash got away from me on the hair. I think it was used in play. There was a little rub off on her chest. This is a gaming style miniature, but if you follow the principles of OSL, which I wrote a blog article about a couple weeks ago, you can make gaming figures have great OSL too. The trick is not fancy painting. The trick is where you're putting lighter and darker colors, which I got wrong on the first one of these. So after I painted this one, Joe was running 3 sessions of that game. So I offered to help with another one because there, all the prints were needed for kind of Kickstarter pictures and streaming and stuff. So there really wasn't any Kickstarter stuff for me to paint right then. And he requested the elf, but in a green and cream color scheme. And then I asked him what color the hair was, and he said he said platinum blonde or ashen blonde. He said an exact term, and hopefully I captured that. But so I just thought it might be interesting for you to see an alternate paint scheme on this guy. In this case, I did not paint OSL, so I painted it as if the spell effect was some other kind of thing than just pure light, because I was trying to get fast or paint fast, and as green users will attest, the light in that room that we were in was not super awesome for those of us who don't work on computers. So unfortunately, again, I don't have the other figure to compare, but I might take some pictures just because it's interesting how much just color can change a figure, which I'm sure those of you who paint a lot of like townsfolk and whatnot for games already know. So that's those two. Oh, and if you weren't watching all the streams and whatnot, and you're like, what is this Dungeon Dwellers RPG? Or you were watching and you didn't go look for it, hopefully Quinny will be able to find us the link. But if you go to the reapermini.com main page, there's a link for the beta rules of the Dungeon Dwellers RPG, and then there's a forum. You can go discuss that with Joseph Wolf, the creator, if you have any questions or comments on the rules. Yes, no, you can't hold my pet sea urchin because they require very special care and feeding. And then the last miniature I have to show you is also a repaint of something else. I'm thinking of doing a blog post where I talk about the experience of painting something again. So this is, I really feel like the light is terrible. Let me try with the gray and see if that helps. Will it focus? It's like, will it blend, but with focusing? See, it really doesn't want to focus that much. So this is another version of Kobzar Soloveco, which you can still get from the Reaper store. There's the SKU number, and which I believe $7.50 of every one of these ordered is still going to UNICEF aid to children in Ukraine. So the reason I painted this one was, I think Quindy is saying she should make a command for the RPG, and I agree, because I'm sure that people are going to be wondering where to get that. So this is this color scheme has nothing to do with the Ukraine and nothing to do with nightingales or any bird. In fact, I did not look at any birds. What these colors are colors that are in the Kickstarter. So I will show you those briefly. You already saw these ones, which are the existing colors that we picked out for the painter's picks. And could I name all these? Probably not, but someday I have a graphic, so I took a picture of it and tried to color correct it as well as possible and then put the names on it, and I will try to post that on my Facebook and elsewhere. So this is, if you get the painter's pick add-on, these are the colors that you will get, and these two are metallics. And that's aged pewter and old bronze, or aged bronze and old pewter. I don't remember which is which. I mean, the name, which adjective goes with which name. But those are among Michael Proctor's favorite colors for painting true metallics. But then when I went down there, we were asked to consult on the new paint colors. And Michael and I put our heads together and we worked with the ladies in the paint department, who are amazingly swift and helpful. And they created this beautiful palette of colors for us based on our mad mixing and descriptions and whatnot. So these are the new colors that you will be able to add to your pledge. When I don't think the pledge manager is open yet, but once it is, you'll be able to, if you're interested in these, you can add them to your pledge in the Kickstarter pledge manager. And since I had these, I used both sets, so I used both colors from the new set. I tried to focus on those, but to fill out the color scheme, I used some colors from the original. The painter's picks, and then I also use blue liner if I needed darker shading. I don't think I might have used a little bit of white here and there. But I tried to use as much as possible only the two Kickstarter color sets to paint this little guy. Now, if you like the other one that I painted, that one will be going up on raffle soon, and I will probably tell you more about that. I think it starts May 15th, so I'll probably tell you more about that next week. Is it focusing? Who knows? So, yes, more reds and purples. And more, one of the people who came by my desk at the party was kind of like, wow, those are colors dark. Colors are dark. And they are, I don't know why, but for every reason, kind of the shade colors, these are designed to kind of plug some holes in the existing colors. And shade colors seem to get canceled a little more than other colors. So, you know, like we have some great khaki greens and you know, khaki browns in the line, but we no longer have the colors to shade them. So these are meant to be those. This is, I have trouble saying the Requiem red. I don't know why Ron did that to me. But it's a great shadow color for way more colors than you would think. This is a very cool color. This is like for lips and the parts we can't show on Twitch. Because we don't really have a great color for those either. And then this one is partly for non-metallic metal. But the other thing I think all these colors are is if you look at medieval clothing dyes, you know, from people who do recreation and stuff, they're colorful, but these colors are probably closer to the kind of colors that you would get from medieval dyes than, like, you know, bright red, bright blue, and so on. So, I think most of them are good for that kind of thing too, you know, your peasant clothing and whatnot. There is a very squeaky, weird noise outside my window. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. Fell into the red said, let's just say areas of high surface blood presence. Well, I don't know. We probably should have called this Terms of Service pink. There should be a Terms of Service pink. Yes, I love this color too. I love soft greens. So that was one I very much wanted back. But then, well, a version of back. Michael helped me tweak it to be even cooler. So those are the colors that will be coming up. I would swatch them for you live because I do have test bottles that I was able to bring home. But we usually send home some of the heavier things in our suitcases by parcel. And I have not yet received that parcel. And I definitely did that because my back was bad. And everyone had to be very nice and accommodating of my sad crippleness. So what did I decide to work on today? And I bet now it's not gonna. So I don't know if you remember this guy. In February, because I think my show was actually on Valentine's Day. I wanted to talk about painting pink because I don't think we talk about painting that color very often. So I painted a pink dress pretty much to completion, and these guys got like base coats, and this one got a bit of wet blending, but we didn't get much further than that. So I thought these would be fun to work on, and also because I don't normally paint. I don't know, gross stuff, maybe. I don't normally paint the Gribblies. I'm always like, yeah, you can call dibs on that all day long, Michael. So I thought it would be kind of interesting if I stretched my painting parameters. So I'm going to show a picture, hopefully, because if you've been here before, you may have experienced picture failure. But if you do not like gross things, so one of them is a brain, like not a brain in a jar, like a brain. And one of them is an earthworm. So if either of those things gross you out, close your eyes for a few seconds. I will let you know when it's safe. So that's the brain. And that's the earthworm. So those were the colors that I used as inspiration. Okay, it is safe for people who are grossed out to look back again. So I'm going to have those pictures on my phone to reference. The brain in particular seems like an interesting challenge because... So there's like really dark purple blue veins, and it kind of seems like they're in the crevices, but I don't think they are all in the crevices. So I don't feel like a wash is necessarily going to do the trick. So I was actually thinking I would paint a bit of blood vessels on there, then do a wash, and then do some other stuff, and then try to make it all gross, where I would probably use gloss sealer as well to make it nice and shiny like in the photo that some of you may not have looked at. Understandably. I mean, I'm not like totally squeamish. I had a friend who we went to see Doctor Strange last night, and I'm like, given what you're squeamish about, I don't think you should go see that. Nomad Zeke. That was a weird time to tune in right as the brain reference pick. Okay, yes. That is the downside of Twitch, because there's always people coming and going. So there was like a warning for people who don't want to look at that kind of thing. But alas, you may not have been the only person who came in the middle. All right, I had picked out that color. I think we need to be even a little darker. So I will probably mix in a little of this black indigo to make the blood vessels. Grunico thought Doctor Strange was awesome. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I wish I'd loved it. But it's interesting because I had one friend who told me, like, how did that get a PG-13? Oh my gosh, that should have been, an R rating. Don't take your kids. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't know. I'm not the person to tell you whether something is child appropriate, is what I mean by that. But there was no point where I was like, oh, this is just too horrible. I can't look. All right, let me get all my bibs and bobs over here in the painting place and try to mix up a nice blood vessel color. And I will go pretty dark and then maybe highlight it a little, and then we'll do the washing. So I have like one friend that I would, well, actually I have two friends who both dislike the same thing. It's kind of a plot point, so I'm not going to mention what it is. Okay, now I feel like that's too bright. What is with this camera? All right. So I'm just going to be fairly random about this. So a lot of them do seem to be in the crevices, so I'm going to paint in the crevices some. But I will also, I feel like maybe I need to add a little water to that paint since we're painting a very dimensional object. There was a lot of careful cutting, though, almost as if the director had experience in the horror genre. This is true. He knew exactly the line to walk, I think. Well, I guess not, since I've seen more than one person make that comment of how did it get a PG-13. But, I mean, okay, I probably wouldn't take an 8-year-old to that, but that would be true of a number of Marvel movies. But perhaps I'm more conservative. All right, that's a very big blood vessel. But I wrote down what colors I used, so I can do some. There we go. Hive Warden, Monster Maw is the pink part. Oh, and while we're here, the giant leech, this is the SKU number, and Enos Klein is the sculptor, and the Hive Warden brain guy, this is the SKU, and Chris Lewis is the sculptor. Just in case anyone is thinking, wow, I really need to torment my players with this monster. Because this guy is, let's get through 4 scale. This is a lot of brain monster. This is not a tiny little brain monster. I need to make some smaller blood vessels after this. Seems to be a bit going on in the center line. I would actually say in some respects, I think the psychological aspects were more horrific, but that kind of thing tends to get me a little more. I also watched Moon Knight this weekend, so I guess I'm really MCUing it up. I imagine there probably is some kind of pattern to where the blood vessels in the brain go. And this is a level of realism to which I do not feel necessary to comply. At least not at this time. Quindy accidentally missed the brain because she got a text message. I'll put it back up if you want, Quindy. Quindy painted the Hive Warden a few years back. It was super fun. Yeah, this is like so not the kind of thing I would normally paint, but then it's fun to do that. Especially if you're feeling like kind of painting, just not that into it. Especially if you've got like, oh, I've got these things I have to paint for my game, or because I promised this person I'd paint them, or whatever commitment. If it's not deadline based, give yourself a break and go paint something else. And sometimes painting something that isn't what you normally paint can help you rediscover the fun. Because I'm having to solve problems I don't normally paint. I'm normally solving problems like, how do I make this skin all pretty and smooth? And that is definitely not the problem that I have right now. This is the opposite of pretty and smooth. Get a little more on the sides here because those are also the more shadowed areas, and I think that the darker blood vessels will help convey that. But now I want to get a smaller brush. Quinny said you don't have to torture everyone. I'll look at the video on demand. While a lot of the blood vessels that I can see in the reference picture are quite large, some of them are small, so I'll get my little small brush. And that's the nice thing about when you're doing random stuff. I just had an oops, and the oops turned into more blood vessels. Just trying to thicken up the color a little in places. It's also a great thing to paint if you have a shaky hand. They're not, perfectly straight or even perfectly curved. They're kind of wibbly wobbly. So that would be a great thing to practice if you're someone who's not entirely steady and you want to practice in freehand. But also I would recommend, even if you're not a regular user of the Reaper forums, if you go on there, and I think the section is called Painting Tips, and this is a pinned post, so it's going to be right up at the top. There is a post by a gentleman who has tremors. So he doesn't just have, his hands aren't just a little shaky. He has tremors. He has a medical condition. And he's done a couple YouTube videos exploring kind of pre-made and custom-made solutions you can use to brace your hands better if you're someone who has problems, to help you paint more easily and enjoy the hobby more. And if you are, even if you're just like a little shaky, you're just someone who's a little shaky, you don't have very steady hands, I think that is a great thread and well worth looking at, because that's one of the reasons I do this, is because one of my few skills in life is holding still. So while I have some tips for how to paint detail and hold yourself a little steadier, I'm not going to be your top source of information on that. Whereas this guy, I'm going to stay in focus, is someone who has a lot more experience, and then other people have commented both on the videos and on the thread with their experiences. So I think that is a fantastic community resource that I recommend taking advantage of if you are frustrated with your ability to paint detail. My main tip is to use the holder. So you got your holder hand. Let me zoom out a little. And then either you're going to brace against your desk, depending on how you like to paint. Those of us who are not petite can very easily brace our arms against the body. So what you're trying to do is lock down everything except your fingers. So then I like to put, so there's kind of a cup here and a bump there. I like to paint like that a lot. I've seen people do a thing where they're kind of, they make a cup with the baby finger and rest another finger on it. But again, the idea is just to lock as much as you can down so that this is all that's moving. It's kind of the exact opposite of regular art, which is use your shoulder, draw with your whole arm, and all that stuff. We want to do the opposite thing of that. So where is my... I think I want to use just a little of the pure black indigo, and then maybe highlight a little with the night sky. Kuniko said, my hive warden had a challenging mold line right through the brain. I suspect mine does too. I don't think it goes around the edge. I wonder if it would work to kind of put a blood vessel on it, or if that would draw more attention to it. I think I will try that, disguising it a little with that. Because yes, it's not very obvious now, but when I put the washes on, I'm sure it will become immensely more obvious. In the way of mold lines. But yes, my recollection is that I did not especially prep these miniatures. I might have prepped... the Giselle that I did the smooth cloth on, because it is hard to paint smooth cloth if you have some mold lines down the side. So my latest blog post that I just put up last night is about, where did she go? It's about that Hellborn dancer. So that figure, which is also in the Kickstarter, and I showed you guys like before I left for Reaper. But I shared all the exact colors that I used, and I also talk about elements I look for because I didn't paint that with a lot of transparent cloth, and part of that was because it was the Kickstarter and I didn't want to, it's a wider audience. Well, I mean, the stockings are transparent, but the other reason I didn't paint it as transparent cloth is that I felt the sculpt did not support it. So there are elements that I look for in the sculpture of the cloth to paint something with transparent cloth, and I didn't do it in this case, but I outline what those elements are in that blog post, as well as kind of just talking about the experience of painting the figure. So if you're interested, you can look at that. So it looks kind of, very painted on right now. My hope is that by doing it now instead of after I've done the washes and stuff, that it will kind of look more integrated in through the rest of the process. And maybe I'm wrong. I could very well be wrong. But this will be, a valuable learning experience for that purpose. So I'm now taking the Night Sky Indigo, which is a little lighter, and painting it on top, especially, so I'm not doing it in the crevices, but I'm doing it on those places where I went on the surface to try to make the blood vessel look more rounded. So it's going to be dark on the far edge and then lighter in the center, which will hopefully make it look raised. Because if you look at a cylinder, do I have a cylinder? I have a brush. That's a cylinder. If you look at a cylinder, the highlight runs down the center and then it gets darker where it rolls away from your eyes. So I'm trying to create the optical illusion of that on these blood vessels by using a bit of darker and lighter paint. And I think I need to go a bit lighter than this because there will be all those washes and whatnot. So I may mix a little of another color in. Let's see what we have. I will use Vampire Pallor. Just it's the closest thing I have that's like a little bit of blue. Hey, Trash. Thanks for subscribing. We very much appreciate it. This guy is called the Hive Warden, Pendrake. And it, I think, Queenie just, of course I'm painting something that's out of stock. Well, that was not my plan. Didn't think to check that. Sorry, guys. Hopefully it will come back in stock soon. Dagnammit. Is this thing out of stock too, Queenie? That's 44031. I don't know why. I have the worst. I pick paints. I want to use paints that are, you know, special edition, or you can't get them anymore. And then now I'm using models that you can't get anymore. But I'm sure there are other brain monsters, or brain, you know, creatures with exposed brains in the Reaper catalog. And I guess this guy is from Bones 4. I'm pretty sure he's from Bones 4. So I don't know if you can see the lighter color. Maybe just take my word for it. Let's see. The worms, who I forget the official names of them, Giant Leech, are in stock. These come in a pack of 2, and the other guy's in a different pose. I don't have him with me, though. Valander says, in Dungeons & Dragons, a monster like this is called a Grell and has a huge beak on the front between the eye and the tentacle. But yes, this is one of Reaper's own takes on a monster, because some monsters are not freely available to use. And probably a Grell is one of them. Alright. Do I want to correct anything? Always, but will I try to prevent myself from taking the time? I guess we'll find out. Okay, there's like a couple of dots that I think will be distracting, so I'm just going to get my Monster Maw. Monster Maw was the original color on this guy. And do a few touch-ups and then do a wash, which based on my reference photo, I think will be like a magenta red, very fresh parts looking color, if I can manage it. Although I can also add that later, so maybe I should just do like regular shading now. I don't know, that's a tough one. Because it doesn't have like goo everywhere. Alright, good enough for player killing, right? Queenie Lou, Bones 4 Dreadmere Expansion is where the Hive Warden is found. If you still have that and you haven't painted all your guys yet, then you have him. So what was the color I picked out? So I picked that out to do the general wash, and then I will kind of mix some of this and not that. I thought I had a true red. That color is more the, you know, the fresh goo parts. And the giant leeches are in the same expansion, which I did not plan. I just have a little tub of figures I thought would be cool to use for various things on stream. And these guys were both in it. From when I finally, you know, unpacked and prepared all my Bones 4 miniatures. And there was a lot of cursing with the gluing. I'm not talented at gluing, but I got the glue that was recommended, and that helped. And now I'm totally blanking on what that glue is, so why did I bring it up? I'll try to get that out for next time. All right, I am testing my wash. If you're new here, I don't subscribe to the idea that you can say for every drop of paint you put in 3 drops of water and that makes it a wash. Some paints are more transparent than others, some are like way more opaque than others. So I like to do a test where I put it on my paper. That might even be a little light for the wash. Maybe I will stick just a smidge of that color back in. This is bruised purple, which I think did we put that one in here? No, we did not. For some reason, Michael and I were talking about bruised purple all weekend. So I'm on a bruised purple kick right now. All right. If I were being good, I would test that again, but I'm going to live dangerously. And is this my biggest brush? No, because there's a lot of surface area. I want to get a wash on quick, so I'm going up to a size 6 synthetic that I got at the store. So all these Ebony Splendors came in a set. I think this is a Jerry's store brand, Jerry's Artarama. I have one locally that's Jerry's, not Jerry. Anyway, but I've really been enjoying these as synthetic brushes, especially for larger brushes, since the Reaper brushes only go up so big. So maybe I'm wrong and that's not too light. But I did make the classic mistake of not mixing enough. Luckily brains come in halves, so we'll focus on this half and then mix up more wash. But yeah, washes are one of those things where it's probably better to make more than you need than less, because I'm like literally scraping the bottom of the barrel there. And I'm having this experience because I don't normally paint giant monsters, so the amount of wash that I typically need is smaller. So I'm learning something from painting the stuff that I don't normally paint. Which is why I recommend doing it. I'm still kind of debating what to do with the tentacles. I feel like maybe I'm going to look up cool octopus tentacles and see if I can find a picture that inspires me for, or maybe squid. Although what was somebody was saying, it's only a tentacle if something, and so squids have both. Squids have tentacles and arms, but octopi only have arms. I don't know. I don't know all the rules. So, I don't know if the camera is showing you. If you look close, try to zoom in as much as we can zoom. There are probably areas where there are little bubbles. Yeah, there's some like right around there. And this frequently happens when you put a wash on. Yeah, there's a bunch over here. A textured surface, particularly if you're in a rush. And I'm going to show you my solution to that. But I do think there's a bit of excess here, so I get the brush damp, and then it will wick up the excess moisture on the figure. But you got to be a little bit careful. You're going to pull stuff away from where you want it. All right, so what I like to do to pop the bubbles is I use like that spray you use to clean your computer, and I'm just pressing it a little. So it's like, it's not cold on my arm or anything. And I'm holding the miniature a little bit away. And you don't want to have a nicely painted miniature behind you because it is 100% possible to blow the paint. To blow specks of paint around. But that pops the bubbles. And I'm just going to look for the excess again because that will also make it take longer to dry. And I'm looking for parts that I miss because I don't know why I find it very easy to miss parts when I do a wash. And if you get it while it's wet, you can probably disguise it. But if you don't notice it until it's dry, it's going to look patchy when you put it on. That part looks weird because of the mold line, I think. All right, so that's going to take a while to dry. So I'm going to put that aside and work on the figure that you can go buy in the store if you want. Let's see. Quindy asks, have I messed with any of the translucent models? And I have not. We haven't been playing in person, and I haven't been painting for my husband for our game, and so I'm not called upon to do it for Reaper or any other clients, so I just haven't gotten around to it really. Kerniko said the hissing noise intrigued the cat. We actually use that as a cat deterrent device, so it does sound like hissing. And if they're being bad and they don't care about water spray, because we had a cat, you could spray them all day long and you'd be like, whatever, I'm doing what I want. You make that noise like louder than what I just did, and that may deter your cat from being naughty. Trash would like to see my take on them someday. Perhaps I could try to do that on a stream. And I am taking ideas. If there's stuff you'd like to see on a stream, let me know in the chat. Or if you're one of our lurkers and you don't feel comfortable saying anything in the chat, or you're watching this video on demand and you didn't have an opportunity to say anything in the chat, feel free to drop me a message here. Drop me a message on my Facebook artist account. Admittedly, I don't check Reaper forums as much as I should anymore, but I will see a message there eventually. But whatever you feel comfortable with, feel free to let me know if there are things you would like to see on stream. And also, if the time has come just about to put in classes for ReaperCon. So if you're coming to ReaperCon and there are classes you'd like, there's this topic you'd like to see me do a class on, that would be a great way to let me know. So I also want to do a wash on this guy, but then I have an interesting problem because we've got these 3 colors. And this is an example of how things look different in person versus on paper, and why, maybe swatching on gray or looking at things on gray is good. Because look how dark this looks. But if you look at him, it doesn't look that dark. But these are, I made these swatches after I did the show where I painted this guy. So those are the colors I used. But because it's in a gray figure and it's got the other pinks adjacent to each other for comparison, it looks different. Color is very relative like that. So I don't know that there's a color that's going to work to shade all of them. I think that middle color is light enough that it's going to need a different shade. So I'm going to see if I can kind of do a combo wash, which, because of how wet paint works, should work. Kuniko says this is a particularly stupid cat. The hissing trick may work on smart cats too, because we've used it on the naughtier smart cat as well as the. Well, okay, my not particularly smart cat doesn't do naughty things too often, or the naughty thing she does, it's impossible to explain to her why it's naughty, which is want us to wake up in the middle of the night and pet her. It's like. It's not like waking up in the middle of the night and asking for a snack. Oh, wow. Well, that was a lot of that. I think I will try to do the thing to rescue the paint a little, because I definitely don't need that much for a wash. So I just put it back in with the brush. I mean, I'm generally not someone who gets too mental about, am I wasting paint? I'd rather save time and waste paint than the reverse of that. But I know everybody has different priorities. Because honestly, I mean, I have paint bottles that they're getting to the point where I don't want to use them because they're so old. So I might as well use them enthusiastically while they're newer, if I'm going to replace them eventually for being old anyway. So this is a very, I was kind of surprised at how saturated the pictures of these earthworms were that I found. And maybe they're photoshopped a little to exaggerate the saturation. But I think that makes it a more interesting monster anyway. So in general, I like higher saturation than lower saturation. As you guys know, if you've been here for shows where I complain about Ron giving me the all the down and dirty thieves to paint. Possibly I should have put a little flow improver in here. And this wash may be a little darker than what I had hoped, but well, you can fix it. I'm going to start now even and just add more water. Well, it's still wet. But now on this darker color, I'm going to switch over to a darker color wash. And just where they join, you know, just kind of, well, I need a little bit of paint on my brush. Make sure to get all the crevices. He's curled up pretty tightly in some parts. For the clear models, going back to Trash's question, that is something I would read about on the forums, maybe on the Facebook group, the Discord, because there are a lot of people who have messed with those. There are people who've put LEDs in them. There are people who have used inks to shade them, who have done other things to shade them. So because that's not a problem that I've had to solve, I don't have any particular insight into that. Wow, my wash is getting exciting. Painting can be messy. I'm okay with that. And this is why sometimes washes are frustrating to work with, because you want, you know, you want a lot of shadow right here or whatever, but if the ridges of the sculpt drain away from there, then it's really hard to get the wash to stay where you want it. So it may be that I need to come back in with slightly thicker paint and do selective shading, directed shading. I'm not sure how you'd want to think about it. So, and this one didn't seem to bubble, so I don't think I need to alarm anybody's cat again, including my own. I'm waiting to get bothered by a cat because my husband is in a meeting and he closed the door, and the cat's going to be having feelings about that very soon, I imagine. So I don't see a flood of suggestions for stuff you guys would like to see on stream. Now, I'm not saying I've run out of ideas. I do have ideas. I didn't have some of the stuff from Reaper I would want, or time. But I'm definitely open to ideas. And for ReaperCon classes. Right now I'm thinking about OSL, since, you know, I've done some miniatures recently, and I'm trying to get the word out on the idea that it's not a high level technique in terms of brush application. It's all about thinking about the colors and where you're putting them. So just in case I didn't say it, because I don't think I did, the lighter wash was this violet red, and the darker wash was red brick. And that really, I mean, he is very saturated now. He's gone away from the earthworm picture that I had picked. But we'll see what happens when I do dry brushing. I was tempted to, I've been seeing people do this. You get these makeup sponges and you I probably could have done it on this guy. While the wash is fresh, you brush it off so that you're leaving the upper surfaces less darkened by the wash. So I don't know if I've told the story, because I probably have. When I first started painting, I was using the Reaper Learn to Paint kits that they had at the time, which is like 2 sets of Go, I think. And it wasn't so much in the first set, which you did like armor, so you had like chainmail and stuff on, not exactly Sir 4 scale, but it was one of the Anurian soldier guys. And then there was like a giant rat, and you did fur. So you did washing and dry brushing on the fur, and then the chainmail. And that was fine. But then I got to the next kit, which was layering, which I liked. But then it was, oh golly, I can't remember her name. She's holding a scroll. And the scroll does have lines sculpted on it to indicate the runes or whatever writing is supposed to be on the scroll. And the instructions were to like dry brush and wash it, and it just, it's like it'll fall in the crevices. And I'm like, no, won't. It'll make this whole parchment look. Yes, scroll, not squirrel. Is there a figure holding a squirrel? Because I want to paint that. I guess we can use the familiars and put squirrels on whatever we want. But I think there should be familiars. There should be figures holding a squirrel that they're trying to rescue from an insane cat. No, I'm not saying I've lived this. I have not touched it's chipmunks, not squirrels, and I don't touch the creature. I hold the cat and let the creature escape to come back another day and try to get eaten by my cat. So I think that did help integrate the blood vessels a little. It is not as dry as one might like in the crevices, so I think that I will resort to... Alright, well, I'll show these guys just briefly again. Zoom in. So, this is Kobzar Soloveco, and this version is painted with colors that are in the Kickstarter, both the painter's picks and the new colors. So if anyone missed that, I have the new colors here, and no, that's the old colors. Here, and I have not yet taken the color corrected picture and annotated it with the color names, but I intend to do that soon. I'll try to post both of these on my Facebook artist page. You cannot write on a squirrel. That sounds like a terrible idea. I don't think they would appreciate it. But anyway, I get frustrated with dry brushing and washing, and I stopped doing it for like a few years, and then came back to it after a time when I understood about texture more. I painted most of this on stream, but I finished it up for Joseph Wolf to use in the Dungeon Dwellers role-playing game that they were running sessions of at the Kickstarter party. So this is an example of what I mean about you don't have to be an amazing painter to paint OSL, because there's like drips on her, there's rubber off paint, there's, the non-metallic metal is not at all fancy like the original one was, but the source light is actually better than on the other version of this that I painted and spent hours and hours and hours on. And then he also was running the other characters, so I pitched in and painted this one, and this is the color scheme that he asked for, which I thought turned out pretty well, actually. It looks a little brighter of a green in some spots on my monitor, but I don't think my monitor is very color accurate. So let's see if that helped. Nope, I think we're going to have to resort to the hairdryer very briefly. I will put a note up so someone coming in knows why there is no sound. And then try to be entertaining in chat for one another. Well, that felt like a really, really, really long time. Pendrick says I need a wearable mic, so I am going in and out, or I mean, maybe I say squirrel and squirrel closer than, it could be a Canadian accent thing. Test it on bug lips, Wendy. So if you've never been to a paint convention, that's what happens. Paint doesn't dry when you want it to, and it does dry when you don't want it to. And now I can see all the places that I mixed with the wash, because of course I can. But that's okay. I mean, I'm sure he would be for a pretty major encounter. So I want him to look kind of cool. He's not meant to die in a couple of hits, is my guess. What did the squirrel wear on its feet? Cashews. Oh, golly. All right, this guy, if I avoid the base, I think is dry enough to work on. All right, I avoid the base and what is presumably his mouth. Okay, now I have to consult my paper. Quinny Rue says, it's a wonder that I understand anything Buglip says with his Newfie accent. Well, then plus there's the vocabulary difference, because every now and then my husband will look at me like I've grown a second head because I use some terminology that is different than how they say it in America. So I had used the Lotus Orange plus Doxy Blush. Okay, that's why it looked a bit different. Plus Doxy Blush for the top of the worm's head. Because I guess I wanted something that was kind of pink and kind of orange. So that's what I came up with for that. And now, let's see, which of these dry brushes do I think might work well? Can we use the big one? Yeah, let's use the big one. But I'm going to have to kind of be careful to switch my colors as I go down the... Let's see, will it focus on him at all? Or is it just going to be all about the paper towel? It's going to be all about the paper towel. So alas, I must put that off to the side. So I'm going to use one of these brushes, which if you were here for my dry brush test episodes, is one of the kinds of brushes that I tested in that episode. This one is the Army Painter version. You can get a set of 3 of these. Artis Opus is actually the company that I think brought this kind of brush to the miniature painting world. And if you're lucky, you can find a cheap makeup brush but you need a shorter bristle head is kind of the problem. So a lot of the makeup brushes have like longer bristle head part. And I will need to go up later from here, of course. Unlike some dry brushes, you don't get it super, super dry. You do it more by using a lighter pressure, and then as the paint starts to run out, you can brush a little more vigorously. I'm not going to do anything with his mouth area because I think the wash is still wet there. So now I'm going to add a bit of a lighter color. Let's see. I bet that's a lighter version of that. We'll just do that. Quinny Lou does get confused with Canadian phrases that make no sense to her, and Kurniko has to double check forum posts all the time to make sure they're translated to stateside language. Canadians kind of speak both because we'll get TV shows and stuff from both the States and the UK, so we get, and sometimes Australia even, so we get a bit of exposure to multiple forms of English. So this is this year they had, or last year I guess, because it happens in October, there was a slightly alternate version of breast cancer pink, as well as the traditional one that some of us have many bottles of. And I think that'll work on the next color down. So I'll just keep on going a bit. But then I'm going to have to start with a darker, oops. There was too much paint. It is possible to have too much paint on the brush with those. I'm not doing a lot on the underside because it should be more shadowed. I mean, I'll do a bit. Maybe I'll come in and put more shadow in later. All right, so for this darker hind section, I need to look up what color I used. Quinny Lou says not just Canadian terms, though, Newfie terms, which I've convinced are purposefully made up to be confusing. And I would not be shocked if you are correct. Should not be shocked at all. All right, so the color I used on the dark pink section was also mixing. Apparently I was very in the mood for mixing that day. So I used Dragon Folk Red and Necromancer Purple, which on their own, neither of these is pink, but they will join forces and become pink. I'm trying to get the XF water off this because I didn't want to leave it with dried paint sitting on it, but also we are switching colors up a little bit. I mean, I may end up with that breast cancer pink color in the end for the highlighting on that, but we'll see. I probably do need more highlighting on the upper portion, unless I want to do lining, which I probably do not. Well, maybe I do. Because what have we talked about with lining? What's a great way to build your brush control? Lining. And also, there's just really no substitute for it. I mean, the wash has added adequate, you can see the segments. And for this kind of creature, I think that's enough. If I had a snake or a dragon or something with nicely defined scales, I would probably want to do some lining on those to really make them pop. So one of the things you can do if you make little swatches of your colors, if you do mixes, is I can come back and check whether I was correct. Now, to really check, I need to wait until that dries. But because there's a wash over, we're going to call that close enough for player killing. That's my new miniature version of close enough for government work. Close enough for player killing. That's all we're trying to do, right? Actually, I don't enjoy super old school adversarial role playing. Like, I don't have a problem with those who do. Bobby Jackson isn't watching the stream, but trust me, Bobby Jackson, he likes it very old school. He was gleefully making us roll on death and dismemberment charts while we were playing a game last week. But I prefer kind of the more modern narrative style. Like if you've watched Reaper Errant on Fridays, that is very much the kind of role playing that I like. So I mixed Oxy Blush in, even though I meant to use that other color. I think it's close enough that it's fine. To create a highlight for that bottom of the Leech segment. So I don't know if you can see that periodically I test on myself, because we're actually pretty good surfaces to test dry brushing on, because we've got the little skin crevices. I mean, certainly use a paper towel. You don't have to put paint on yourself. I'm not recommending it. Reaper paints shouldn't have anything in them that would be injurious to you, but it's a good practice if you do other kinds of painting. Because I have cadmiums and other heavy metal paints around here that I do need to try to not get on myself. Hey, Art of Mike Disney and Sentimental Minis is rating us, and Art of Mike Disney has just shown up. And welcome to all of you. I hope you are having a good day. I am following up. I started painting some pink things on Valentine's Day. I was working on 3 different things, and that was overambitious because 2 of them did not get very far. So I'm returning to these, but I guess I'm also inspired by having gone to Doctor Strange last night to get out of my painting pretty clean things mode and start trying to paint some gribbly creatures, which I don't normally paint. I mean, I kind of have a policy of trying not to paint things that I don't want my husband to attack us with. That's not true, really. I just am typically not painting monsters for some reason. So I thought it would be it's a good day to paint monsters. This is for newcomers, this is one of a pair of giant leeches that you can get from Reaper. It is SKU 44031. And then the other guy I've been working on is the Hive Warden, who's currently out of stock. Alas, I did not know that when I picked one up to paint again. But when he comes back in stock, it is 44023. And that is sculpted by Chris Lewis. And I'm using the funky dry brushes from Army Painter. Artist Opus also makes dry brushes along these lines. And I will be giving them a very thorough cleaning later. I'm just going to keep it to what I need to do to make them function for right now. But I am going to have to grab that smaller one just because I can't get the brush in to the back of the neck there. I need to do just a little bit with the smaller one. There are actually 3 sizes of these, but I don't know. Maybe the other one's bigger still. I can't remember now. But I just grabbed these 2. I probably have it over there, but it's hard to find in my cup. All right. I feel like those bottom segments need a little more, a little lighter highlighting. Let's see. I'm catching up on chat. Quindy has shared the links to follow Sentimental Minis. Kuriniko likes painting 1 goblin in 20 to a really high standard. My players think that is the leader every time and go crazy trying to take it down. Oh, that's devious. That's very devious. I like it. And then you get to have fun with different kinds of painting. Because I was talking earlier about how if you're kind of feeling in a painting rut, painting something in a different way than you do. So if you normally paint like a lot of figures really fast for a game, painting one figure to a higher standard, when you take your time, or like what I'm doing here, if you normally paint just player character type figures, painting a monster, if you normally paint fantasy, trying something science fiction or historical. Those are all things that can kind of help you reignite your love of painting. So for this lightest color, I'm using Milani Rose, which is one of the Pathfinder colors. Pathfinder line has a lot of really nice pinks and purples, and I mean there's some other cool colors that it has too. I like all the colors in it. I wouldn't say if I had a friend and they're like, I want to buy a set of Reaper paint and I can only buy one, which set would I get? I would not recommend the Pathfinder colors in that scenario. It doesn't have a lot of dark colors to mix shadows with. and stuff like that. But in terms of, are there cool colors to add to your arsenal, if you are someone who already has some paint, 100%. So I'm trying to be a little more directional and go on places that are going to catch the light. So I'm definitely not going to go on the belly with this lightest color. I'm not even going to go down here, but this part that's folding up, I will go ahead and hit. He might need some slime too, I don't know. I didn't get that little bottom sucker thing well enough. And the color of this critter was inspired by a picture that I had of earthworms that really was a lot more saturated pink and orange than I had realized. I'm going back with not as light a color, just in a few places that didn't look like they were quite highlighted enough to me. So there he is with all the cool texture that was sculpted in. And this is what, you know, I'm looking at my earthworm, and I will briefly put that under here. He's pretty darn shiny, so I don't know that it's going to work if I do it on camera, but it might be fun to put some, you know, just some gloss sealer on him, or slime, or make him, I guess, I don't know if this is the kind of monster that would have drool, but it could just be slime that's dripping off of the monster. So I need to fix his base, but other than that, I think he's done. I think there's like a little skeleton down there that I didn't even notice until I got a bunch of pink on it. So I will just go touch up this part a little bit. So I couldn't paint the mouth area at first because the wash was still wet. I'm just gonna do a little bit of that now, because I'm sure my Disney and Sentimental Minis have had the experience of you're on stream, so of course your paint won't dry. So you can go to the next step. Well, everybody's waiting for you. Am I seeing in frame at all? Who knows? The camera and I have been arguing a little bit of late. And I think just to make the mouth stand out a little more, I'm going to get some clear red, because it's transparent and I don't want to cover up everything I just did. Well, it's more transparent. It's not fully transparent. But that's why so if you're been wondering what are these clear paints in the Reaper line, they're the purest pigment paints, but because of that, they don't have any white or black or other things that you would mix in to make them more opaque. So Anne thought the best way to convey this was to just go ahead and call them clears. So they are, you certainly, you can mix your own colors from them if you're someone who likes to mix paint and you like pure artist pigments. This is the Reaper version, is anything that says clear in it, and a few others. But the other great way to use them is like this, to tint something, because they're more transparent. What was that? I'm gonna put some shadow under the neck, I think. Necromancer purple. I was getting the wrong color. Because I wrote down the colors I used, which is good because I would never remember otherwise. Or maybe I'll just use the bruised purple. I'm been all about bruised purple for the last week or so. It's a very useful color. You can even use it for shading the skin. And for bruises, of course. So I just want it to be, that might be a little too dark. A little darker under the... All right, so to avoid the ridge, my brush is now just damp. And I'm just going to, I mean, you know, the line where the extra shading I've added shows, like right there. You would see that line if I leave it. So I'm just going to use the damp edge of the brush to kind of smooth it down. And I might use red brick and do that in some of the spots on the bottom. So just adding a little extra depth with, I guess I think I've been calling it a selective wash. Really it's layering. I'm just trying to make it sound less scary. But it doesn't take a lot of time to do that kind of thing, but it can add a little more dimension to your critters or your people without a lot of extra effort. And I think that needs to be even darker, actually. But let me get the edge first. So I'm going to mix in a little bit of blue liner. I can figure out what I did with it. Okay, well, I can't find blue liner, so I'm just going to use black indigo. I'm just trying to make a slightly darker purple anyway. Well, purple, magenta, whatever we want to call this color. You can see I'm being like super precise and persnickety about my colors. And this paint is, this previous paint is still wet, so it's not a problem to come back and add some of that in. But now I do need to try to keep it away from how I painted this little pseudopod or whatever it is. The lighter color. So instead of trying to do a super dark wash over everything, this is how I would handle that. And I probably would even go darker still under here, but it's not dry, so. And it's the type of not dry where I think I risk pulling paint up instead of adding paint. But I'm going to add some shadows to these mouth parts so they have more dimension. It'll look scarier coming right out the layers. Oh, there. He's coming along, I think. Do I need to add a little shading down here? Maybe just a little. So he's definitely still pink, but hopefully a little scary despite being pink. Because when I first did the pink show, I was trying to do, pretty pink and less pretty pink. because there are both kinds for sure. So you can see how just that little extra bit of shading that's not, you know, a huge effort or skill. And there I did pull out some wash because of course I did. Adds to, you know, how round it looks. Which hopefully adds to players going, ah, what's coming at me? So one day I would like to paint his base, but maybe I will leave that until I'm doing another base episode. You guys want me to try putting gloss on him right now? Would you say, would you people who paint monsters a lot say that the whole thing should be gloss, or I should just kind of gloss in sections where it looks like he's oozing something gross? Let me know what you think in the chat, and I will go back to this guy who surely must be dry by now. So for those who came in later, I painted this. Where is my Monster Maw? I painted this with this color in the previous episode, and then I went over and did this. So I'm going to show the brain again. Close your eyes if you don't want to see something gross, just for a second. So you can see that there's blood vessels on the brain, as well as redder parts. So to do the blood vessels, I painted that on before I painted the wash. Then I did a wash all over. Green Eco believes that the gloss should be in sections. I wonder if somewhere I have something called Yoo-Hoo that you're supposed to be able to make cool drippiness with. I wonder if I can find that and try to make some cool drippiness. Oh golly, this might actually not be dry, but we're going to do it anyway. So this will be interesting because I don't want to lose... The blood vessels are primarily in the crevices, which is how it looked in the picture to me. But there's also some on the surface because it didn't seem like they were only on the crevices in my picture. So hopefully I won't lose them too much. If I do, I can go back over them with the other colors. My intention was by painting the blood vessels on before doing the wash, it would hopefully look more integrated and natural instead of like something painted on. And this is a different sort of example, but if you've painted creatures with fur patterns, like cheetahs, tigers, things like that, and you've felt like they look too painted on, I have a couple of articles on my blog where I talk about painting fur patterns, and it's kind of, it's not the same, you know, I mean, it's not under the skin like a tattoo or the blood vessels or whatever, but it's a similar thing where you've got to make it look integrated. You can't have really sharp edges. And the blog post talks about a few different ways to do that. I don't know that I've painted a furry critter on here. I mean, we did there was a Knoll Pirate, which is a furry person, not a furry critter, but it wasn't like highly textured fur like a big wolf or something would be. So perhaps that is something I should do on stream. All the wolf patterns are a little different from like tiger stripes or tabby cat stripes or something like that. Leopard spots. It's more that the color of the fur changes over different parts of the body. And then also a lot of animals have, I think it's called agouti, A-G-O-U-T-I, where if you look at the hair, and if you have cats, you may have noticed this, individual sections of the hair, like it might be white at the tip and gray in the middle and then another color at the bottom. And a lot of the coloring of something like a wolf is due to that, which we don't have individual hairs. We can't paint individual hairs. But we can kind of duplicate that by using a little more color variety in our figures, if that makes sense. I need this pink to be just a smidge darker for the undersides. Mix some of the Necromancer purple in, I think. That will do it. So I'll have to go through my stacks of things and see if I have a cool furry creature that would look appropriate with the pattern. I do have a big furry wolf that I was demonstrating some stuff on for some of the online Reaper classes and things that happened a while ago. Like there was RVE, which is Reaper Virtual Expo, but I think we did a virtual ReaperCon too. Those agouti hairs are great. They show up on any color of clothes, Kroniko points out. Yes, they do. It's wonderful to have cats with agouti hair. It's super helpful. I once had this magic futon that concealed all colors of cat hair. But alas, eventually the magic futon wore out. And I've never been able to repeat that with other furniture or clothing. So I think the blood vessels are looking somewhat integrated in. I mean, it's not, like I'm not going to enter this in the MSP Open and expected gold, but for the purpose, I think it's working. I need a lighter pink. And we have actual Brains Pink is one of the colors. So I feel like I'm compelled to use Brains Pink on the brain. Backstyles Painting is off to a meeting. Thanks for joining us while you could. So that's the Brains Pink compared to the Monster Maw. So it's desaturated, as well as being lighter. Most lighter colors are desaturated, but I think it's desaturated even in comparison to some other light pinks. But perhaps this brain is a little too pinky, and it will be good to gray it down a little. Running out of space on my dry brushing towel. Kroniko uses the lint rollers direct on the cats. They love it. Are those like the sticky ones or the grabby ones? Valander the Red. Am I the only one who thinks Brains Pink is a little gray? Or is that deliberate? I do think it's grayed, and I think it's deliberate. I think that the brain picture I have is of a very fresh brain. I think this is more of hasn't been a brain for a minute, color brain. So similar when I was talking about putting the shadows on the Leech, I don't think I really talked about it as much for the dry brushing. I did a little, but I'm concentrating the lighter colors on the areas that would be getting more light. So it's not just, to me anyway, it's not just about highlighting the texture. I mean, the texture is super cool. You do want to highlight it. But if you can also work on highlighting and shading the overall shape. So in art terms, they call that form. Form is 3D shapes. So I'm not highlighting as much under here because I want that to look darker, because that is kind of underhanging. And whereas this is up top and it's getting hit by the light. So I'll put a little there, but I'm not going to put a lot. And I may even go, add another final round of highlights up top, just to really bring out the textures. And I'm using the brush, how I use the brush for that. I'm pulling down from where the light is coming from instead of getting in on the side and scrubbing. If that makes sense. Oh, Baleforge is raiding with a party of 6. Hello, Baleforge and raiders. I'm working on some pink monsters today. So I had started these on Valentine's Day, and I didn't get very far, so I wanted to work on them a little more. Graniko uses the sticky ones that you peel off, and your cats like that. Interesting. Perhaps I shall have to try that. I think I've just come to accept that being covered in orange fur is my life now. I do want to dull down the next layer of highlights, so I'm debating what to use. Like going to linen white is going to be too much. I will mix the linen white with the Rains pink and see what we get. Yes, Balefire. I do love pink monsters. Well, I wanted to show that pink can be scary as well as a pretty color in my original thing. So I started this on Valentine's Day, and I did paint like a nice dress on a princess type character, and that got finished, but the monsters didn't get very far along. So I wanted to go back to the less pretty pink. And that is how we got here today. I have no idea what time it is. Oh, okay. I'm actually not doing too bad for time. And then for people who came in later, I'm using, these are, Army Painter does a set of 3 of these for $20. They're specifically made for dry brushing. Artist Opus is the company that first put this kind of brush out, I think. If you look around, you may be able to find a makeup brush that's kind of similar. Pendrake is asking, Ella doesn't have orange fur. Who has orange fur? Corbin has orange fur. And he doesn't like being, he's not a very cuddly cat, so he's hard to pick up. Plus he weighs almost 20 pounds, so he's hard to pick up. So he has not really made an appearance on stream. But he is an orange tabby, and he's got silkier hair than my other cats have had. So it's that kind of hair that's just like, I was at Reaper, and I think like day 7, I pull out my iPad or something, and there's a Corbin hair there. Like, how is there a Corbin hair? I'm hundreds of miles away from him, but yet there it is. He has that kind of hair. But yeah, we love him anyway. It's not so fine and silky that it floats around and gets in the paint area, which is good, because he's our second cat that we kind of scooped up off the street and rescued. The first cat was bullying Ella, so we couldn't keep her. We had to find her an alternate home. But she had like super fine hair, so I think it also would have been a problem to keep her from the point of view of not having cat fur in my painted miniatures all of the time. Keeping that to some of the time. But Ella and the cat that we had that died a couple years ago had very sleek, like silky fur. But I guess it's heavier or something because it just falls down. It's not like everywhere. Like the fine colored fur. So then the other thing I wanted to do with this guy was get, what color had I picked out? So there's like kind of a, yeah, I think it's this color. There's like fluid on parts of my brain picture. So I'm going to get that, and I think we definitely need some gloss to make it look good and gross. And I'm going to just put it in areas the way I was doing with that shading. I'm wondering, does this brain need a little bit of shading? Maybe just a little on those undersides. So I'm just going to put it in sections and then use the edge of the damp brush like I did on the other things. But let me just get a little bit of extra shading under here. So this is the Selective Wash is kind of what I call it. So it's like wash consistency paint, but I don't want to put it on the whole guy. I just want to put it in areas that are more deeply creviced. And the more texture your thing has, the less likely you are going to have problems with, oh, there's an edge. But so I just rinse my brush out really quick, and I just take in the damp brush along that edge. And I'll do it on the other side. bit where it curls under here. So it just adds a little more dimension. And then I think, of course, we need to get it. This is the Corpus Callosum. I don't think that Corporea is here today to help us with our medical terms. She would probably be like, that's not what brains look like. Although I guess really that's not her field. Maybe she would not be saying that's not what brains look like. She probably hasn't seen brains since medical school, would be my guess. I hope. So there, we got just a little extra shading in places. And now I will mix up my gory goo. Valender's Red. My white cat's sheds are far more visible than my black cat's sheds, but one of my black cats has short hair, but has long hair shedding genes, so he will often shed all the way to bare patches on his haunches during the late spring, early summer. Oh, wow, okay. I don't think my cats have variable shedding patterns. I mean, we noticed that the old guy got a few bald spots on, like, the back of his legs and some other places, but I looked it up, and that just is a thing that happens to old cats. Other than Ella's ears always have like these little places where it seems like more hair has come out, and I worry that it's because they're fighting, but I don't know for sure. So I've mixed the violet red with gloss sealer. If it dries and it's not glossy enough, I will just gloss it up more later, I guess. And then this, I want to do the same thing before any of this paint gets too dry. I want to do that thing where I'm making sure that there's no like super obvious edges. And the whatever this fluid is in my reference picture does have places where it's thicker and thinner, or more intense in color and less intense in color, but I assume it's because it's thicker and thinner. I didn't get to that one quite quickly enough, so there's a little wash ring, but I could probably rub it off since the paint can't be that dry. So I will think I'll just do 2 of these at a time and make sure I'm getting the edges. I'm not sure they are going to be glossy enough because I probably had to thin it down enough that it's not going to show the gloss as much. So I will do the glossing as a separate step. And then one day I shall return to you and do tentacles and or arms. But I want to do some research on how those would look first. So this is one of those things where I want to be careful not to overdo it and not to be too symmetrical. Both of which are easy to do when you're painting. I think we as creators have this urge to add order and be symmetrical and stuff. So it's kind of really challenging to be random sometimes. There does not seem to be a lot of this stuff down the middle, so I'm not going to put a bunch of it there. I'll just put like a little dab here. So I think that adds a little bit of interest without having taken me too much more time to do, but it's definitely going to need some gloss once it's dry. Which, as we experienced earlier, when the wash gets down on those deep ridges, that takes a minute. This guy dried, and so now you can see the additional shading I did with the Selective Wash on the underside, and I did some on the underside of the neck too, and it should make it look a little more dimensional. But I think he does need some glossy goo. Try to ponder where to make the glossy glue. Although maybe I need to look for that Yoo-hoo stuff that I mentioned. That is probably one of those places where I don't know where it is from the things I lost in the move. It was not a move. We did our floors, but it had a very similar effect. Now I don't know where anything is. So I am feeling free to apply this quite thickly in spots on the, supposition that this creature could be excreting some kind of thick mucusy stuff. So I'm not, plus I've already done the painting, so I'm not worried about filling in detail. Which gloss sealer absolutely can do. You can use it to smooth out problem areas on a sculpt, but I tend to prefer using brush-on sealer. You're less likely to add texture you don't want or remove texture you do want. And I think around his mouth definitely needs to be good and glossy. Whatever the pseudopod has going on. I mean, this is probably a step I should have left until after I did the basing, but I was excited about making it look cool. Gross. I don't know if the brain is dry enough to make it look all gross. Nope. I don't think it will dry in time today. So, don't know. I run out of pink things now. So I think that I will take some questions if anyone is interested. The Only Do the Red has found the specific signature of some Bob Rodolphe sculpts, the way he does the back of a cloak. Yeah, Bob and Julie both do cloth folds in a kind of distinctive way, and one that responds very well to quick tabletop techniques as well as more elaborate techniques, I find, which I think is pretty cool. So does anyone have any questions about the colors I used, or using reference, or the selective washes, or I don't know, anything like that? I will tell you about some other cool stuff you can watch on the Reaper channels. First of all, you can watch, in addition to video demand on Twitch, you can catch all of the shows on YouTube. So everything gets uploaded to YouTube, which I think Quindy does. Again, thank you very much for your service, because we really appreciate it. So you could go back and watch every one of my shows, or every one of the Crow's Nests, if you wanted. So there's that. But then the stuff that is on Twitch, if you prefer things live, you've got Anne every day, Monday to Friday at 11:30 a.m. Texas time. My show's Monday at 2. Tuesday is the Crow's Nest at 5 p.m. So that's Michael Proctor, the painter, and Jason Wiebe, the sculptor. And they often have someone who works in the industry on as a guest, and they interview them. But lately, they've been doing a series where Jason is teaching Michael to sculpt. Wednesday is Miniatures Den with Luca, which I think is at 1 p.m. now. I keep not updating my sheet. Thursday is the Crafty Creative with Josh Foreman at 2 p.m. Texas time. And he does like a lot of different things. Last time I looked, he was working on making trees, but he does like sculpting and maquettes and painting and all kinds of cool stuff. Then Reaper Live is the show that most of you watch, because that's where you can win free things, but also where you can get the latest information on Reaper, what's going on with Reaper, products that are coming out, what's happening with ReaperCon, all that kind of stuff. Friday, Reaperland at 3 p.m. is like the community show, so that's a fun time with John and Dave, who's one of the owners of Reaper. And then every other Friday is Reaper Aaron. I was talking about that earlier, the role-playing game. And if I finish these, maybe I should send them to Frank, but then he would make us fight them. So I'm torn. I'm torn by dilemmas there. But we have a good time. So it's 3 of the Reaper painters, 3 of the sculptors, and Frank from Nightheart Gaming, who has like amazing tables and painted figures that a lot of people from the community contribute, as well as Frank and Anne painting them. And then he adds music and special effects, and it's just super fun. And then I go to razz my friends too, but I enjoy the visuals as well as the friend razzing. And that's what Reaper can keep you busy with on Twitch. I don't think I forgot anything. If you look, so up at the top of the screen is my website. And I like to write about miniature painting and give tips and stuff as well. So that is a place to go. Like, for example, I painted this on stream a few weeks ago, but I have like an article up with all these kind of tips and ideas for how you do OSL. And the reason I was painting this on stream is because I painted this figure and some other ones that go together as a set, and I didn't really do the OSL that well for reasons that the article explains. But I wanted to try again and have that to compare with the other one for how you would do it better. Because OSL is not... You can use the same techniques I used to paint these guys and do good OSL. It's about colors. And then this guy was also part of that set of figures, which the original one is painted with OSL. That is not terrible. But this one I painted to participate, the figure to participate, not for me to participate, in a session of the Dungeon Dwellers role-playing game that Reaper has beta rules up for, that I bet Quindy's going to link for us. And so they broadcast streams of this. It's probably still on the VOD. It is probably also now on the YouTube. So if you want to see the game in action, there are streams of that, or you can go read the rules and you can share your opinion on the Reaper forums if you have questions, or there was something that didn't make sense, or you want to suggest something to be added. You can converse with the Joseph Wolf, the creator of the wool set, there. This is Kobzar Soloveitko is his name. If I'm saying that incorrectly, which I'm sure that I am. This is the SKU number. The reason I'm pushing this one is this is a charity figure. So Reaper is taking $7.50 from the sale of every one of these and donating them to UNICEF for relief in the Ukraine. This particular one I painted using the colors that are in, well, I mean, so Reaper Kickstarter 6 has concluded. If you weren't in it, they'll have late pledges available. So either way, you're going to be able to get these paint colors. But there's always two sets of paint. One set is a set of existing colors, and this year some of the Reaper artists, including myself, picked out the colors. But we also collaborated on the new colors that are coming out. So I sat down while I was at Reaper for the end of Kickstarter party, and I was goofing around with some of the colors, and I painted this guy, which is totally different from the other one of those that I painted recently. Unfortunately, I don't have the ones that belong to Reaper I gave to Reaper, so I can't do direct comparisons, but I will put up photos showing the different color schemes and whatnot. And these are the new colors that I was talking about. I will probably swatch them out again on a future show when they arrive, because I don't have them yet. I mean, I had them, and then I was sending them home in a parcel with some other things, including something else I want to paint again, because I want to talk about the value of painting things again, because I think there is value in it. In this case, I was exploring doing something better, doing a different color scheme, but sometimes it's nice to, if you're feeling down on your painting, go paint something that you painted when you started, and then compare the two, and I think that you will feel better about yourself and where you are. So that's what one of the I want to paint something that I painted way early days, to kind of do a comparison and show people. So I don't see any questions or anything. I'll answer random questions too. I mean, I don't promise to answer everything, but I will answer random questions that are unrelated to the thing that I'm doing, as well as the thing that I'm doing, if it is possible for me to. That's why I keep a set of the Learn to Paint colors, which is something else I'm going to swatch. So I picked up the expansion colors for the Learn to Paint kits so that I can swatch those out, and then they're going to go in my little Twitch tub of paints. So I keep the paints from the excuse me. I keep the paints from the two Learn to Paint kits to the side, so that if someone does ask me a question where I need to, mix some colors or demonstrate something, I have other colors than whatever I chose for the day, like pink. Balefire is asking, what is my favorite effect to paint? I do like OSL. I like the challenge of it. I also like transparent cloth. It doesn't come up a lot because there are certain sculpts that it fits, and there are a whole lot of sculpts that it doesn't fit. Well, and times when it's appropriate and times when it's not appropriate, I guess would also be fair to say. I'm not, so effects. So like, I guess NMM is an effect. It's definitely not my favorite to paint it, but it's not my favorite. It is very tedious. What other effects? I mean, weathering can be fun. Transparent cloth is, I pretty much retired that as a cotton class. It's complicated to teach. You need enough time, and then you need enough time for people to sit and try it themselves. So it takes a little longer to explain than some things. It's not like it's a super, I mean, you need to be able to layer. You can't do dry brushing and washing with transparent cloth. So you need to be able to layer a wet blend or have some other smooth blending method. But it's kind of conceptually, it takes a while to explain. And some colors and types are harder. So there are some where you can kind of paint the skin and then just paint cloth color over it and that'll work. There are colors where that won't work, or where it won't look quite right. So there are different ways to do it too. And they'll depend a lot on the color. Because, you know, if you mix some skin colors with black, you're going to get something that's kind of green. So you can't always do it by mixing. Or you can't always do it by mixing the colors you're trying to get to, I guess, is part of what I would say. Freehand is not my favorite. I'll do it, but it's not my favorite. the tedious, tough things where the payoff is really long, far away. I guess those are tougher. I tend to do the skin first, and then the cloth over, and then just kind of, you know, fix in between. Fixing in between isn't as terrible as it seems like it is, but I'll overpaint the skin and then paint it back with the cloth. So yeah, I like the gloss. It's cool. I like that. I may even put more on once this set dries. But I guess my throat is telling me I have to call it a day. Sorry, and it's so weird. He didn't do that while I was away at all, even though we were doing the party and everything. But I will be back next week. Hopefully I'll have my box from Reaper then, and I can show you paints live or some other stuff that I got there that I probably don't even remember what it is. But thank you all for coming. If you have ideas for future shows or for what you'd like to see me teach at ReaperCon, feel free to contact me privately or mention in the chat on another stream. And I guess I'll see you next week. I'm sure Queenie's going to have a raid for us, so I'll put up my end of stream screen. And she will take you somewhere fascinating. So thanks again for coming.